Welcome back to Hold 'em Accountable, where we don't pull punches, we pull back the curtain. Today, we're heading straight to Indiana's 4th Congressional District, right here in the heart of the Hoosier State, to talk with Martinsville resident and congressional candidate Thomas Hall Jr. We're going to talk about his vision for the district, what inspired him to run, and how he plans to shake things up in Washington. Thomas, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've lived in Indiana pretty much my whole life. I grew up in the small town of Paragon, Indiana. I'm not sure if a lot of people know where that is, but if you know where Martinsville is, well, I'm sure you know where it is. You live around here, but for the people that don't live around here, it's just a little south of Martinsville. But yeah, it's this little town. I mean, pretty much all they have is like a Dollar General, gas station, maybe a restaurant or two. So really, really small. But pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, I lived here my whole life. Went to school here, in this little area, Martinsville area. You consider Paragon to be part of the Martinsville area, but I mean, I love it. I love the scenery. I love the people. I love everybody. It's great.
What motivated you to run for Congress in Indiana's 4th District? What experiences or issues pushed you to step into this race?
So pretty much, what inspired me was, I'm sure you watch the news, but there's a lot of violence going on. And honestly, there's nobody calling for unity. I think a lot of us want the same thing more or less, but we have different ways to going about it. But at the moment, we're polarized. So I mean, people on both sides are attacking each other, killing each other. Unfortunately, like there was Ben Sharpio. So his house actually got burned down, pretty much. So we have people on the left attacking the right, people on the right attacking the left, and there's nobody calling for unity. We pretty much want the same thing. If we sit down and we talk, talk things out together, both sides, we realize that we really just want the same thing. There's just people on both sides, like Fox News, for example, that just wants to get people angry, get them divided. There's people on TikTok. Their only job is to be an influencer to divide people. Like the right will literally pay people to push whatever message you want, pretty much, or whatever message they want. So like there's this whole network of influencers that can push any message they want, any message, I think disparaging is the right word for it, disparaging the left. And the same goes for both sides. It's just politics is a game of hate anymore. It's not a game of what can we do to make the country better. It's a game of, okay, let's play both sides so we get the most votes. There's a lot of corruption. And that's another reason why I'm running, all the corruption. Uh, there's all this big pack money going into candidates, and they're like, "Hey, loosen the regulations here, and we'll do whatever, and we'll give you money, do whatever we want. And if you don't do exactly what we want, we're not going to fund you." And pretty much, people don't have the money. A lot of people don't have the money or the confidence in candidates to support them anymore. So they have to rely on these PACs, and they have to do exactly what they want. It only hurts the American public. So I guess to sum it up, I'm pretty much running because of the corruption and the divide that's going on in our country at the moment.
The 4th District is a mix of urban, suburban, and rural communities. How would you balance the differing needs across that variety of areas?
So with the rural and the urban areas, I mean, a lot of the things that there's a lot of things that you could do that would benefit both. For example, increasing minimum wage. Like in the small town I grew up in, Paragon, Indiana, I think most people make like minimum wage, 7.25 an hour. But most of those people actually, I wouldn't say most, but 20% of people in Paragon, Indiana are on federal assistance programs. And that's because they just don't make enough. So that's one of the things that you could work on for urban areas is raising minimum wage. Another thing, another thing is also supporting businesses. When you go out as far as, there's a few towns over by Terre Haute that are pretty rural. And the biggest thing with them is there's not a lot of businesses you can shop at. There's not a lot of businesses you can work for. I think with my aunt, the biggest employer where she lives is Meyer and Kroger. Besides, I think UPS, like in Terre Haute, but part of it's giving funding to businesses so they could build in these areas more or less. And obviously, the issue with broadband, not a lot of people in these rural areas have broadband. Like my aunt, I think the only thing that she can get is dial-up, pretty much. And good luck trying to render a website with dial-up because they have all these different fancy things on the website now, like videos autoplay. So you could be sitting there for like hours, but trying to watch a video. But really, a lot of the things are the same. I mean, obviously, the rural areas, there's more farmland, so pretty much giving more subsidies to farmers for their crops, crop insurance as well. Um, right to repair is another thing that's very important to farmers. I mean, a lot of them are getting out of the business. They're getting priced, or it's just not worth it anymore. So, like, and I know it doesn't really look like they're not making a lot of money, but the money's coming from the butchers. So the butchers, they're pricing the crops higher and higher and higher, and that's reflected in the supermarkets pretty much. But I mean, those are just some examples. I mean, there's a lot more you can do, but ultimately, it's just going out and talking to people. Every area is different. Martinsville is different than Morrisville. Is different than Lafayette. If I said that right, I hope I said that right. I learned that I was saying it wrong, so apologies if I said that wrong. But um, yeah, I mean, every town has different needs. And it's really just asking those people, balancing those needs, and coming up with a solid plan to make their lives better. And it boils down to the economy. It boils down to community on both sides, really. So something we've lost is community. Like, people don't want to get up or get together and meet anymore, more or less. I mean, we're just stuck on our phones. So really, it's just that, more or less.
Many voters are concerned about inflation, cost of living, and the economy. What concrete economic policies would you support to help families not just survive, but to thrive?
Okay. So some of the things I would like to do is first off, raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. So the reasoning for that is if you look at the minimum wage in the 1980s, it was I think $1.60. And if you adjust for inflation today, believe it or not, that's actually $15 an hour. People want to complain and say that 15 is like too much for people. Well, that's how much people were making in the 80s. But aside from that, something I would like to do is offer microloans to businesses to help them thrive, especially kind of work with the Small Business Development Center to offer loans in areas that need more competition. So part of the solution to getting prices lower and wages higher is to increase competition because the more the more jobs there are compared to the amount of people and the amount of people working, the more they'll raise the wages just in general, and as well as getting prices lower. So, I mean, um, you're not going to charge like, crazy amount of money if the guy down the road is charging, way less. You're going to want to compete with him. So part of keeping prices lower and raising wages is simply just competition. So pretty much, in addition to that, I would like to offer a tax break to businesses that increase their average wage over over 5 years. That's something I would like to do. So offer a tax break. If you give your people a 20% raise, we will give you a tax break for that, just to increase wages across the board because the middle class is suffering too. So you have people on the poverty line or in poverty suffering, and then you have people in the middle class that are slowly getting dragged into poverty. So more or less the solution to that is to just try to raise wages across the board so people can afford more things because it used to be you could go on like a couple vacations and when you were middle class in like the 80s you can go on a couple vacations like you can go on vacation to the Caribbean more or less and you had enough money to do that. You weren't like, oh gosh, how are we going to find how are we going to find the money to do that? But I mean, wages across the board have just decreased overall, and the solution isn't just raising minimum wage, but it's putting bottom up pressure and top down pressure to kind of force these businesses to pay them more or less. But that's pretty much my policy as of right now. I'm learning a lot, but that's pretty much my policy on how we're going to boost the economy.
How do you view the role of federal government in issues like healthcare access, mental health, and prescription drug costs? What reforms would you advocate for?
So my view is that the role of the government is to prevent suffering, and nobody chooses to have a health crisis. Nobody chooses to have a heart attack. Nobody chooses to have a stroke. So it's not like these people are choosing to have all this happen to them. Some people are just it's just their genetics. So I view my view on that is that the federal government should support and fund affordable healthcare for people. And honestly, I think I read a statistic that said 8 out of 10 Americans want affordable healthcare, which is a lot of people. So, and the problem with that at the same time is that when you make prescription drugs more affordable, you decrease the incentive to make new drugs because they feel like their endeavor is wasted. So, a solution to that, along with regulating pharmaceutical prices, is to offer them bonds for research. So if they invest all this money in research, we offer a bond. They still come out, on top pretty much. So their endeavor researching isn't wasted. Like they're actually still getting money. But another thing that's a problem with pharmaceutical prices is pharmacy managers. So what they'll do is they'll take like I think it's like a rebate or a discount from the manufacturer, and they'll just pretty much pocket the money. And then when you go to the pharmacy, you don't see that price reflected. So I don't think that should be legal for them to do, more or less. And with mental health, so a big thing with me with mental health is the mental health of kids. That's the biggest thing because if you look at the science of how children's brains develop, basically what happens to you when you're a kid causes permanent brain changes in you when you're an adult. So if you go through trauma when you're a kid, those changes actually those changes actually reflect in long-lasting neurological changes as an adult. So like if you're abused, you're more likely, I mean, everybody's genetics are different, but you're more likely to commit crimes. And even if you go through your whole entire childhood, you never have a problem, those changes are still there. You're still more predisposed to committing a crime. So something I would like to do is invest in mental health care for kids. So something I propose, or what I'm proposing, is offering like kind of like a counselor. You could do therapist that's a licensed PhD in psychology. You could do a social worker or somebody who's qualified. You can come up with a certification program until we get enough therapists. But um, like giving these kids a chance to meet up with somebody, bi-weekly, maybe not every week. And if they need more support, they could be referred to outside people so they can have more support. But giving somebody they can talk to on a daily basis, so they feel comfortable with talking to, um, so they can talk about the problems because kids' brains are very malleable. So the investment you put in kids at an early age, that reflects into adulthood. That's the reason why we have a lot of crime. It's the reason why we have a lot of gun violence is because these kids, they have this trauma or something's happening. Maybe they're getting bullied, and that's causing long-lasting neurological changes. So in addition to that, I would like to um, kind of do like a peer mentoring program as well. And so I think having, somebody your age to talk to as well about the problems you're having is another good solution because they're more like you, so you feel more comfortable talking to them. So starting up a program like that for kids, and it's something that a lot of people don't talk about uh, with healthcare is the reason why so many people are getting sick. And that's the pretty much the stuff that's getting put in our foods. Pretty much hyper palatable foods are getting put on the shelves and people are basically it's basically designed to make you want to eat more and more and more, and the obesity is causing more and more and more problems. So kind of focusing on what could we take out of foods to make them a little less appetizing, or maybe a tax on sugar like what they did in New York to incentivize people to eat healthier, because that's a lot of the problem with healthcare is we have a lot of people that are sick. So if we get to the root cause of it and we look at why are people getting sick, well, it's because these foods are hyper palatable, or it's because these foods have this and this, or whatever. If we get to the root cause of it, healthcare could be cheaper, and we wouldn't have to worry about wait times either. Like something that you see in Canada and cities, especially, there's long wait lines, and that's why a lot of people aren't for affordable healthcare, because they believe that the wait lines will be long, like Canada, and that's a very, very valid point. So, kind of getting to the root cause and making it more affordable for people, and getting to the root cause of why crime happens. It's mental health that this mental health problems at an early age. I think we could really reduce the cost, reduce crime, and make people's lives in general better.
Do you see your role in immigration policy? What approach would you support at the border, and how should we balance enforcement with humanitarian concerns?
So, something that I've learned is that we actually have a really good asylum process. The problem is that the wait line is very long. There's people that wait years and years and years to get granted asylum status. So basically, these people are caught up at the courts. There's so many people just sitting there waiting to get approved for asylum process, or even they don't know about it. That's another thing. When they're crossing the border, nobody's like, "Hey, by the way, there's an asylum process." But um, even if they did, I mean, there's a giant line. So I think part of the humanitarian effort with that is to reform it, provide more funding so we can go through the cases faster, provide more staffing so we can go through the cases faster and get people approved who are actually here on um, at good reasons, more or less. In addition to, I think we need more surveillance at the border as well. We need to secure the border more. I mean, if you look at it, if you look at the statistics, pretty much, I think people who come across the border are actually less likely to commit crimes than your average American. Most of these people aren't coming over here to commit crimes. I mean, if you're coming over, you're not coming over here because you're a gang member. If you're a gang member, you're likely going to stay in Mexico because they pretty much run the government. So why would you want to leave a country that pretty much lets you do whatever you want? But I mean, there are some people are coming from gangs, and I think we need to secure the border. We need more funding for the border, and we definitely shouldn't let people cross the border whenever they want. But we need to reform the asylum process. That's my opinion, because that's really where the holdup is. But I mean, that's my policy on that.
Agriculture is important in many parts of this district. What are your plans or proposals to support farmers, from subsidies, trade policy, to dealing with supply chain issues?
So a big problem with agriculture is a lot of people are getting out of it because, I mean, if you look at John Deere, for example, they make it to where you have to buy a brand new tractor before you. I mean, you can't even repair it. So I think supporting right to repair is a big thing with farmers. So allowing them to fix their tractors or equipment cheaply, opposed to buying a whole new tractor, which is very expensive, is one way to help them, as well as increasing crop insurance, because anymore with the way the climate is, I mean, they're seeing a lot of their crops get wiped out, unfortunately. So supporting more crop subsidies for them, or crop insurance and subsidies for them as well. But in addition to that, I think we need to negotiate trade deals with other countries, because pretty much with China, the problem there is they're actually not buying any soybeans because of our trade policies. So they've actually went over to South America to get soybeans. I know that's hurting a lot of farmers. So I think we need to negotiate better trade deals. And honestly, the solution isn't, and I know that's a different topic, but the solution isn't tariffs, because if we make everything here, it's a race to the bottom with prices. The thing with America is the reason why we did so well, the reason why we achieved the status we achieved, isn't because like we had the cheapest prices, but it's because we were innovative. We were in, we innovated. We came up with new things, better things, and that's American innovation. So, you know, with tariffs, the race to the bottom, bringing companies over here isn't necessarily the solution. The solution is really just supporting people here, supporting new businesses here. So I know that didn't really tie into that, but that's the reason why they're not buying American crops is because of our terrible trade policy. So that's pretty much what I would do with that.
Do you define patriotism, and what does it look like in your everyday policy work?
Patriotism, to be frank, is just having the American people's best interests in your mind and not being bought out by PACs, corporate PACs. I think corporate PACs are very anti-American. So your goal when you get elected, or what people want you to do when you get elected, is to serve their interests, not somebody else's interests, and that's patriotism is serving the interests of the people you represent. So making America a better place, not for corporations, but for the people you represent in your area. So everyday policy work pretty much is just not listening to the lobbyists per se, but it's listening to your own constituents. If I said that right, I hope I did. But listening to the people you represent. That's patriotism to me.
Them Accountable is the podcast name. What does accountability mean to you in public office? And how would you ensure you are accountable to your constituents?
Okay. Accountability to me means no taking corporate PAC money. Accountability also means, when if you do something the public doesn't like, you need to listen to them and change what you're doing. So, in ensuring I'm accountable to my constituents, I think I think the broader thing is because I could be, this great politician that listens to everybody, but the next guy after me might not be. Because nobody's in politics forever. Or at least I don't think you should be in politics forever. I think you should make room for new ideas, new perspectives, different ways of doing things, because that's how we grow. We don't grow when you have the same guy in office for like 30 years. He's like in his 90s. But I think accountability has to do with banning Citizens United. I think we need to get rid of that, or well, repealing it is the right word for that. Repealing Citizens United, as well as just honestly banning corporate PAC money as well. Just period. You should get money from people who support you. The people you'd be representing. That's my opinion, as well as banning insider trading. So a lot of these people, they're passing laws because they know how it affects the stock market, and they're getting rich off that. That's honestly insane to me, and it's very anti-patriotic. So banning insider trading, or repealing Citizens United, banning corporate PAC money is honestly the best way to hold both yourself accountable and the people after you accountable. But that's my opinion on that.
In an era of loud extremes on both sides, how will you distinguish yourself? What principles do you refuse to compromise on? Where are you willing to work with people for whom you disagree with?
So yes, I know there's a lot of extremes on both sides, and honestly, it's because a lot of people feel like they're not listened to. If you look at why people vote Republican, it's because they feel like they're not being listened to. They feel like they're being ignored by the Democratic Party. And if you look at people that are Democrats, they feel like they're ignored by the Republican Party. So honestly, it's really just listening to both sides. I mean, and just trying to understand it. Maybe not implementing exactly what they want, but listening to what they have to say, understanding what the problems are, and just looking a little closer at the root cause of why they feel the way they do. Because a lot of the times people don't really understand why they feel the way they do, and they kind of blind to that. So it's really just sitting there listening to people, regardless of who they are, independent, Republican, Democrat, moderate, libertarian, all those people, and just trying to come up with a solution that doesn't what's the right word for it? A solution that actually solves the problem, the root cause of the problem, the why. And I think that's what a lot of politicians don't sit there and think about. They're like, oh yeah, we need this policy, we need this policy. Like Republicans, for example, they want lower property taxes. Why? They want lower property taxes because they're struggling financially. But do lower property taxes actually solve the problem? No. The problem is the economy. The problem is they're making less. They're making less than what they did in the 80s or the 70s or the 60s, whatever. But they're making less. So their response to that is, okay, let's lower the property taxes. So it's really just looking at the root causes of their problems and making their voices feel heard. That's the way that you can kind of appeal to people without having to take a specific side per se. It's just figuring out what the root cause of the problem is. And honestly, if I see a solution that benefits everybody, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Like, yeah, I support like lower property taxes for people who are 65 and older or retirement age because I mean, a lot of people aren't working, they're on retirement. So, that's something the Republican Party wants, and I think it's a good idea. It doesn't matter who it comes from. A good idea is a good idea to me, and I think that's something that will make me stand out.
What would you say is the biggest challenge your district faces? And what plans do you have to address it?
So, the biggest challenge, it's hard to put, I think it's hard to put makes or it's hard to say something's the biggest challenge because everybody has a different biggest challenge more or less. Like some people, they're in poverty. Like we have a lot of people in poverty. The biggest challenge to them would be, well, I want to make more or I want to move up in society. That will help me, or maybe I need better health care that's more affordable, or maybe whatever. Or some people might say it's the prices at the grocery store. So when you go to the grocery store, they would like to see their prices lower. I mean, that's a big issue to some people, or the housing market. A lot of people who are retired, especially with how the housing market is they bought their house like 10 years ago when the real estate prices were really low. And now their property taxes are like through the roof and they can't afford it. That's a big issue to them. Or if you go, yeah, if you go to, if you go to the city, I mean, they have different problems there. Like, some might say crime. And honestly, I don't think cities have too much more crime than rural areas. I'm just going to say that. But because it's more people crammed into a smaller space, you're going to see more crime in general. It's just population density and statistics on that one. But crime's one for those people, or maybe it's just the data center, like in Franklin Township. That's a big thing with them, or even in Martinsville, the data center in Martinsville. So everybody has their own challenges, and everybody might say the challenge is a little different, or the biggest challenge is different for them. But truthfully, it's just really addressing all of it and doing your best to listen to people. That's the way that you can address the biggest challenge each person faces individually. And I think that's what a lot of politicians don't do. They'll hold these town halls. They'll go, right, right, and then they'll go and do their own agenda. Pretty much, or whoever the puppet master is, that's controlling their actions or policies. But um, yeah, so it's just really listening to people, understanding people, and figuring out what their challenges are. How do you address it? And even if you can't address it, that's okay. Just you need to admit that I don't have a solution to that. But getting people around you to help you come up with the solution for that, people that know the problem better, knowing who to talk to, I think is the best way to address that. And I know that's a little side note, but that's how I would address pretty much. And another thing I want to add is rural healthcare. It's terrible. And I mean that. And what I'm saying with that too is there's not a lot of places to go, unfortunately, if you're in rural areas. So, like my daughter, she needs food therapy, and the closest place to me is Indianapolis. So, just supporting more funding for stuff like that, bringing in more money for healthcare infrastructure and environmental. Um, we need to clean up that river. The SEIRMC facility has dumped tons of toxic waste, and it's in that river. We need to clean it up. But
Which river is that?
the White River, it's actually over by the bridge. But yeah, they have dumped a lot of stuff in there, and it's poisoning people. It's in their wells. If you have a well, it's in your water. Maybe not as much if you have city water, but it's definitely in your wells. So that's something else. But there's tons of issues. I could sit here and talk to you for like hours and hours and hours, but but my plan is just to talk to people and figure out what their biggest challenge is individually, because that's what matters. I mean, yeah, it's important to look at people on a grander scale and a community scale, but I think it's also important to look at people on an individual scale and figure out what their challenges are. But yeah.
And since you have said that, it kind of flows perfect into this next question. How will you engage with voters who feel disillusioned or like their voice doesn't matter? What strategy do you have for outreach in communities that are often overlooked?
Okay. So something I plan on doing, and not a lot of politicians do, is I want to offer appointments. People can make appointments on my website. They go on this little Calendly, I think it's how you say it, Calendly application. They can select a day to meet with me, talk about their problems. I want to put my email out there. I want to put maybe my phone, maybe not my personal phone, but I want to put yeah, uh, might be a bad idea to do my personal phone, but I want to put my email out there. I want people to be able to reach out to me through social media. I just want people's voices to be heard, because honestly, the biggest thing with me is I feel like my voice isn't heard. Like with the guy who's currently in office, Jim Baird, if I said his name right. And I feel like honestly, a lot of people don't like him because he doesn't sound like he listens to people per se. And that's not to say I have any hard feelings about him per se. I don't know him well enough to, say whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. When I'm looking at his policies, he has some okay policies. I think he's really good with agriculture, but honestly, I think that he he need, he doesn't really listen to people the way a politician should. He doesn't listen to all of his constituents. And part of that is really just listening to people regardless of your party. Yeah, he goes to Republican meetings, right? He listens to them. What about the people who are independent? What about the people who are Democrat? What about those people? Those people not matter to you? But it's really just, listening to people on both sides. And like I said, getting to the root cause, asking why, figuring out why. Just it doesn't even have to be their solution as long as it solves the problem that they're having. So it's really just getting out there, talking to people, listening to people, and just being somebody who actually cares. Because I actually care about people. I want to hear what people have to say. I want to hear what their ideas are. I'd love to hear different perspectives, because guess what? Policy doesn't happen in a vacuum. I've never heard of somebody doing something great pretty much all by themselves. They've always had something, like even non-politically related things, like Steve Jobs. He didn't do it by himself, did he? Or Einstein or Feynman. They didn't do all that by themselves. They came up with those great ideas because they were able to go out there and talk to people, get ideas from people, get different perspectives from people that might not be on the same page they're on, or they might not believe the same thing that they believe. So getting out there and just listening, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Like I said, I don't care where it comes from. If it's a good idea and it benefits people, that's the only thing I care about. The only thing I care about is making people's lives better, regardless of who you are, from the farmers, from the people who live in the city, from the people who live in a small little trailer in Martinsville, Indiana. Everybody. That's what I care about. I want people's voices to be heard. And even when I get in office, I know I know the biggest issue is how are you going to respond to like 5,000 people a day, because you get a lot of emails. And something I don't want to do is have a staffer just respond to people. So, because I feel like that's just, I mean, that's a solution, but that doesn't solve getting your voice heard, because they pretty much take your email. They're like, oh yeah, thanks for reaching out to us. We'll make sure that gets to the politician, and then they forget about it. Pretty much, because I've reached out to a lot of my own representatives about issues, and honestly, especially at the federal level, they're not going to meet with you. They're not, honestly. But I'd like to come up with a solution that makes it to where I'm hearing the voices of my the people I represent on a more regular basis, on an individual basis too. That's what's important to me. Listening to what is important to people individually, as well as what is best for the communities they live in. And I know a lot of people are disillusioned. I mean, I've emailed a lot, and I get a staffer response every time. unfortunately. And I get it. And I'm not saying I'll understand because these people are busy. They're fundraising, they're going out to their corporate donors, listening to the policies that they want, pretty much. But that was just a joke, but maybe. But listening to all kinds of stuff, going to events, all kinds of stuff. They're super busy people, but I think there needs to be uh, there needs to be a way for individual people to talk to their federal representatives as well. But that's my opinion, and that's not the only thing I'm gonna do, and that goes for everything here. I'm learning a lot. I'm talking to a lot of people. I'm trying to figure out what people's um, challenges are individually. And I'm trying to just come up with a solution that doesn't just take somebody's solution like at face value, but actually looks at the root cause and actually helps them without siding necessarily one way or the other. I know I'm running as a Democrat, but that's because I support a lot of policies from the Democratic Party. But like I said, if somebody from the Republican Party has a good idea, I'll listen to it and I'll actually look at the root cause of it and ask why and figure out what's going on. It doesn't matter who. But I won't take all day. We can go to the next question.
Um, what are your views on dark money, PACs, and transparency? Would you support
Okay.
reforms to reduce the influence of big donors?
So, like I was saying earlier, I think corporate PAC money should be banned. I don't think corporations should be able to donate to candidates because of the implications that come with it. Because when they donate money, they're expecting you to basically do what they want for them. Otherwise, they won't support you. They'll donate all this money. They might even give you the full amount, or they might run ads for you, not directly supporting you or not directly supporting you financially. But these corporations have way more money than any individual could ever have. So I think a good idea would be to ban corporate PAC money as well as ban, like I said, insider stock trading as well as repealing Citizens United. I think once that happens, I think we're going to see a lot of politicians who actually care about the country because when they're not getting rich and then when they have to live with the laws that they pass, they're going to realize, hey, I need to start like I need to start doing things that better the country. Otherwise, like I'm going to suffer too because they have to live. The part of the requirement for federal representatives is they have to live in the state they're running in as well as Washington D.C. or the state they ran in as well as Washington D.C. So if they're not getting rich, they're gonna have to live with the economic policies that they create. So I think that's the biggest way. And in addition to transparency, I definitely think there needs to be more transparency. And I'll be 100% honest. I'm not 100% on where to start with transparency because there's a lot. There's a lot. And once you solve one problem, you create another problem with transparency because when people want something, they will find a way to do it. So it's a very hard thing to really deal with. But I am 100% committed to dealing with transparency as well.
In your view, what is the role of media and independent commentary in shaping public opinion? And how would you interact with these forces if elected?
Okay, so I think the media is very important because it allows you to have more of it feels like personal relationship with the candidate. You get updates on like what they're doing. I think that's very important, so you stay up to date with them. I think I think it's very important to just put yourself out there because most people want some news. Not everybody, because the news can be kind of depressing sometimes. I think you know that, but most people want some news, and I think that's the best way for candidates to reach people. Yeah, sure, you could have them on the email list, but who checks their email? I mean, people do, but there's a lot of people that don't, or it goes to your junk mail. Media is the best way to reach people because you, it goes directly on their news page, and you can see what's actually happening. Now, with interacting with them, I would love to do interviews if they'll have me, as well as put my messages out there as well, what I stand for, updates, stuff like that, and just really kind of it gives you a chance to speak to people directly, which I love that. Um, and it allows a constant kind of commentary with people. And I think that's really good. And I think that's very important. That's why a lot of candidates don't really think about. They don't really think about interacting with the media, or maybe they try and they're not interested. But I think I think it's a good idea to try to talk to people, try to talk to the media, because that's the best way you can get to the people you will be representing when you get elected. That's my opinion with that.
Okay, now we come to the part of the interview that I'll ask a series of yes no rapid fire questions.
Okay.
No explanation, just
Right.
yes or no.
Right.
Let's go. Will you commit to holding at least 4 in person town halls per year in the district?
Yes.
Do you believe the 2020 presidential election was free and fair?
Yeah.
Should members of Congress be banned from trading individual stocks?
Yes.
Do you support an independent commission for redistricting in Indiana?
Definitely. Yes.
Should assault style weapons be restricted or banned?
Mm, yes.
Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour?
Yes.
Do you believe climate change is real and largely driven by human activity?
Yes.
Would you vote to protect access to IVF and contraception nationwide?
Yes.
Should healthcare be considered a human right?
Yes.
Will you pledge not to take corporate PAC money in this campaign?
Yes.
Do you support term limits for members of Congress?
Yes.
Should every state be required to allow early voting and no excuse mail in voting?
Yes.
Do you believe the U.S. should continue strong support for Ukraine?
Yes.
Should marijuana be legalized at federal level?
Definitely. Yes.
Will you still run for Congress if the districts get changed?
Yes.
If you lose this election, will you accept the results without contest?
Yes.
Lastly, where can the viewers find you?
I'm on Facebook, as well as I'm working on the website as well. Still under construction, but definitely start with Facebook. That'd be a good thing. It's trying to think. I'm not sure about the domain, but it's Elect Thomas. If you want to follow me on Facebook, I have something on X. Not there a whole lot. I would definitely um, recommend following me on Facebook first if you have that. I'm on X for the people who don't have Facebook, but and I'm also on Blue Sky as well. And I think maybe one more, but those for right now is what I'm on.
And what's your website?
Well, selectthomas.com. If it's kind of all over the place, I'm programming it from scratch, so it's not gonna be like the most polished thing at the moment. So the website might kind of veer off to the left, but it's because I'm still messing with stuff. But I know some programming, I know some web design, so I'm doing it all myself. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me. That's when it's out, definitely go there for sure. But yeah, it's going to be a really good website. I've been working really hard on it. I've been working on just integrating all the tools. I'd like to do mobilize eventually. That's another place to find me eventually. I have a page, no events yet. It's going to be a month and a half, because I'd like to finish the website before I start doing mobilize. Put all my policy on there and all that. But I'll be on mobilize and ActBlue as well. You can donate to me if you like what I said. But yeah, that's pretty much where to find me.
And that was Thomas Hull Jr., Martinsville resident and candidate for Indiana's 4th Congressional District. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing's clear. He's ready to make some noise in this race. Here on Hold 'em Accountable, we don't do softballs. We do straight talk, and I appreciate Thomas for showing up and answering the tough ones. If you like today's interview, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you don't miss our next episode. You can also listen to the full conversation on Spotify. Just search Hold 'em Accountable, Links are in the description below.